But today I'm here to show you something new that you cannot find anywhere else. Hi everyone, welcome back to John Florio channel. I am Mary and I'm here to talk about, the great John Florio. Happy New Year! Happy New 225 to my beautiful John Florio community, the John Florio Society. Today I will uncover a new shocking source for what is the most famous, popular monologue in the history of literature, To Be or Not to Be. So, the title is The Real Source of To Be or Not to Be monologue. Let's start by talking a little about the influence of Giordano Bruno in Shakespeare works. I have made several videos in which I show you how Los Labus Los is a play that contains two important sources, John Florio's plays and Giordano Bruno's plays, specifically Il Candelaio, the candle holder or the candle bearer. We know today, thanks to few but important scholars, that there are many influences of Giordano Bruno in Shakespeare works. Specifically, I made a list for you of the influence of Giordano Bruno's thought in Shakespeare works. Let's begin with the post-Copernican theory. You know that Giordano Bruno was a promoter of the infinite universe. He was criticized and attacked at Oxford. He followed Copernicus' theory that the sun was at the center of the universe, but he went beyond Copernicus because he firmly believed that the universe was not finite but infinite. And Shakespeare embraced this revolutionary idea. In fact, in Hamlet, we have the famous quote, "Oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell, and call myself the king of infinite space." This is not coincidence, this is not casual. Shakespeare knew what he was writing. He was citing Giordano Bruno, infinite theory. We also find, and I have explained you in several videos in the past, that we have a thematic structure of Il Candelaio similar to Los Labus Los. This is the play that contains the greatest amount of references to Giordano Bruno's works. This is why I firmly believe that Los Labus Los was certainly written by both John Florio and Giordano Bruno. Then we have Gli Eroici Furori, the heroic frenzies, possibly the most important work of Giordano Bruno that he wrote when he was at the French embassy with John Florio. In Eroici Furori we find many sonnets that have similar thematic and topics and structure to some Shakespeare sonnets. Yes, Giordano Bruno was also a poet. An example of these similarities are the sonnets that Giordano Bruno dedicates to a dark lady. Giordano Bruno hated pedants. He made a satirical treatment of pedants in his works. This is also, it's quite absurd to believe that John Florio was a pedant if he was Giordano Bruno's best friend. Giordano Bruno fiercely attacked pedants in his works. This is the same idea that Shakespeare has in his works. For example, the famous Holofernes, the Shakespeare scholars still believe that represent John Florio, actually represent a pedant that Giordano Bruno writes in his Il Candelaio, in his comedy, The Candle Holder. Manfurio. The pedant Manfurio has many similarities with Holofernes. Transmigration of the soul. This is a topic that Giordano Bruno explained at the University of Oxford. For Giordano Bruno, we don't really die. After death, we become something else, and before we are born, we are something else. So we never really die, but we always transform ourselves in something different. There will be always something of ourselves in that thing that we become later, but it will be different. So death as a pure moment of passage is also found in Shakespeare, specifically in Hamlet. The famous quote, "A man may fish with a worm that had eat of a king and eat of the fish that have fed of that worm. The king that eats the fish that eats the worm, the king dies and is eaten by the worm." The eternal cycle of life, transmigration of the soul, Giordano Bruno. In one line, Shakespeare explained the theory of Giordano Bruno. Also, this is something very unique in Shakespeare that we do not find in other playwrights of the time. Art of memory. We know that specifically in Hamlet, we find references to the art of memory. Giordano Bruno was famous for his art of memory. He published many works on the art of memory, and the same John Florio makes references to Giordano Bruno art of memory in his works. The art of memory is also found in Hamlet. So you can see all these topics of Giordano Bruno in Hamlet. And madness. Why madness? When Giordano Bruno arrived at Oxford in England to talk about his theories, he was considered mad. The academics at the University of Oxford attacked Giordano Bruno and he was forced to leave the university. He was considered mad for these theories that today we consider normal and widely accepted, but at the time Giordano Bruno was too revolutionary for his time. He was avant-garde. People still didn't understand that he was right. When he left Oxford, he went at the French embassy with John Florio. There he published the most important works of his career, among them Gli Eroici Furori. The theme of madness is also present in Hamlet, and Giordano Bruno developed the theme of madness in the works that he published at the French embassy. In Shakespeare Hamlet, madness is a new way of seeing life, and as the freedom or cultural renewal within a world full of old principles and theory that Hamlet does not accept anymore, and specifically old principles and preservation of a corrupted power covered by blood and violence. This is also a topic that we find in Giordano Bruno. For Giordano Bruno, a cultural renewal was necessary and he was considered mad for his revolutionary ideas. Why he was perceived as a mad? Because people didn't understand his theories. And this is something that we also find in Hamlet. So as you can see, there are many Giordano Bruno theories in Hamlet. And indeed, reading Hamlet, we feel that we are reading and we are studying a work of philosophical nature, philosophical and scientific nature. And now I want to show you a new source for the famous to be or not to be monologue. Today, the main source of Shakespeare to be or not to be monologue is Montaigne Essays, the English translation published by John Florio. In the 13th chapter of the third book of Montaigne Essays, this is what John Florio writes. I know I have neither frequented nor known death, nor have I seen anybody had either felt or tried her qualities to instruct me in them. Death may peradventure be a thing indifferent, happily a thing desirable, yet is to be believed that if it be transmigration from one place to another, there is some amendment in going to live with so many worthy famous persons that are deceased, and be exempted from having any more to do with wicked and corrupt judges. If it be a consummation of one's being, it is also an amendment and entrace into a long and quiet night. We find nothing so sweet in life as quiet rest and gentle sleep, and without dreams. So as you can see, there are many similarities with the famous To Be or Not to Be monologue. In fact, today, this source is well accepted among Shakespearean scholars, despite John Florio published his translation in 63, and we know that Hamlet was written around 61, so many Shakespeare scholars attribute these similarities with a manuscript that John Florio circulated among his friends before the publication of his Montaigne. But today, I'm here to show you something new that you cannot find anywhere else. And this is a new source. The new source of To Be or Not to Be monologue is Giordano Bruno. Eroici Furori is possibly the most important work that Giordano Bruno published during his career. He wrote this work when he lived at the French embassy with John Florio from 1583 to 1585. In these Eroici Furori, Giordano Bruno writes both dialogues and many sonnets that we have seen have similarities also with Shakespeare's sonnet. In the second dialogue of Eroici Furori, Giordano Bruno writes this: "O worthy love of the beautiful, O desire for the divine, lend me thy wings, bring me to the day spring, to the clearness of young morning, and outrage of the rubble, the storms of time, the slings and arrows of fortune shall fall upon tender body, and shall weld it to steel."
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub.
In this part, you can see that there are two main sources of this monologue, Montaigne and Giordano Bruno, Eroici Furori. Now, I want to ask you a question. Do you think that it's a coincidence that Shakespeare wrote Hamlet when Giordano Bruno died in Campo dei Fiori in 1600? Do you think that it's a coincidence that Hamlet contains so many references to all these Giordano Bruno's works? Do you think that it's a coincidence that the same Hamlet contains many similarities with the same Giordano Bruno, a man considered mad? They talk about the infinite universe. They talk about the transmigration of the soul, or the art of memory. And is it now another coincidence that we find in this beautiful monologue another reference to Giordano Bruno, Eroici Furori? Don't forget that Giordano Bruno's works were not translated into English. I am 100% sure that Hamlet was written by Shakespeare specifically because he knew that Giordano Bruno died and he wanted to commemorate Giordano Bruno by writing a scientific and philosophical work in which he brought many references to all Giordano Bruno's works. And in the end, in the most famous monologue in the history of literature, he left a trace of his dedication to Giordano Bruno and his Eroici Furori, a man who was considered mad and died for his ideas. I firmly believe this was a dedication from Shakespeare to Giordano Bruno. Stay resolute. Bye.